It's Monday. Welcome to Mansfield Today and the business section, brought to you as usual by Capital Legacy, your number one provider of wills and estate administration. As we said last week, Chris Gibbons is somewhere in the bush at the moment. He's up in the Kruger. But before he left, he caught up with an old colleague of his. I don't know if I should mention the word old, really. Well, it's a pre-record, so he can't shout at me now. An old colleague of his from media days, and if you were in the media in the 80s, you would have come across the name David Dyson. And he did an interview with him on the second novel that he's just brought out. A fascinating interview. Take a listen to this. Chris Gibbons talking to David Dyson.
Jeremy, thank you. Yes, if you were anyone or anything in the media in Johannesburg in the 1980s, chances are that you'd at least have come across our guest, maybe even had him in your corner in court. Remember the 1980s, do you? A time of great upheaval in South Africa, security police all over the place, the PW Botha government trying to shut down, silence all opposition, especially in the media. Well, he certainly worked with us at 702 when I was running the news operation there. And I'm sure you came across him too, Jeremy. In those days, a partner at a prestigious law firm, Bell, Dewar and Hall was its name, the one and only David Dyson. David, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. You've just published your second novel. It's called The Good Nigerian. Please tell me about it.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for that great introduction. Yeah, and it used to be a tough time in the 80s when we used to have to pull you guys out of scrapes under the emergency regulation. Please God, we're not going back there. Chris, yeah, the theme of this novel is really about xenophobia in Johannesburg and intrigue in Johannesburg. And it's all about a detective, Nossel, who's my construction, who goes about trying to solve these strange mysteries in this wonderful city of ours. And he travels between various points, from the riches of Sandhurst to the depths of Doornfontein, looking for a kidnapped ex-colleague of his, Alex Dorby, together with Alex Dorby's wife, the Good Nigerian, who is a person who has been, who knows Johannesburg because she was a sex slave in Johannesburg 10 years previously. And it really is a story that tries to make Johannesburg a character, to look at Johannesburg and all its seaminess and all its underside, but also, of course, obviously, its massive attributes as well. So for me, it's been an exercise in a love letter to Joburg in a way.
What attracts you so much to Johannesburg? It's a city, I was born in Johannesburg, I love Johannesburg, but why do you love it so much?
Well, in the first instance, I'm a fourth generation Johannesburger. My great-grandfather came here from Lithuania in 1896, like a lot of Jews did at that time, and established himself, and the family's been here ever since. So we're Joburg-based, and we love the city, and we've lived here for generations. And what attracts me is that it's such a great frontier mining town in one sense, but an enormous emerging megalopolis in Africa in the other sense. So, and in a sense, I think overseas people come and pass through Johannesburg and on their way to Cape Town or to the Wild Coast or Wilderness or wherever, and they don't quite know what kind of a vibrant city they've left behind.
David, an obvious question, bringing it back to the book. How much of your own personal experience as a lawyer, as a person in business, did you draw on to create the characters?
Huge, Chris. I mean, it's based on real characters in Joburg, and it's, you know, each of the characters is a bit of an amalgam and a bit of a construction. None of them actually are actual living persons living in Joburg, but I've based a lot of it on real people and real situations that I've had to encounter over the years.
I have some very clear memories of your good self in the 1980s, at least one of which I picked up immediately in the book. Your main character, the private detective Nossel, refers to himself at one point as Comrade Golfer. Now that comes from a true story that for a moment or two at least had you quite worried. Please talk us through that one.
No, right. You know, the Comrade Golfer story and sort of kind of narrative that goes through the books is really looking at a relationship. I mean, golf is the sport of supposedly well-off people, the sport of the upper class, let's say. But in Joburg, it's got a very particular character because the caddies on all these golf courses are an incredible bunch of characters. And in the 80s, I was associated with the goings-on of the United Democratic Front and Radio 702 at that time, and all the media that were sort of flouting the emergency regulation. And we did our best at that time to ensure that we didn't comply with the emergency media regulation through a whole variety of legal ruses, just to keep information flowing. And yeah, I'm veering off the Comrade Golfer point, but in that time, I think that when I got to Houghton Golf Club, I was referred to as Comrade Golfer because I was known to operate in the townships and be quite active there. So I had a kind of a dual relationship.
Apart from personal experience, who else influenced you as a writer?
Look, I grew up reading Rex Stout, Nero Wolfe, The Fat Detective, all the Chandler work. So, you know, I've always loved the detective novel because it lends itself towards creating the city as a character. In any good detective novel, you'll find that the city is very important, and the detective operates within the city, unpicking the city and trying to get the clues from every kind of area that he can possibly find. So the understanding of Johannesburg as a city and the layers of Johannesburg as a city lends itself very well to the detective novel. So Nossel is a kind of an everyman detective who's looking to understand the city as he travels through it. And so I have kind of flashpoints in the city where things come together in very juxtaposed form. So you move from sublimely well-off parts to unbelievably poor and denigrated parts, and trying to get some life and humor through all of that.
David, the business side of things, if I can call it that, the criminal underworld of Johannesburg, I can smell it off the pages. You create a very, very vivid picture in the Good Nigerian. How close, though, is that to reality?
It's hyper reality. I mean, it's obviously exaggerated. But these kinds of figures, the brothel keeper, the Sandhurst Lodge, the courts in the city, the offices in the city, the small street mall. These locations lend themselves to massive underworld dealings in the city, as you know. And it's stemmed all the way from IDB and gold and the roots of a frontier mining town, and the whole issue of prostitution here, which I examine, and which obviously is still illegal in South Africa, strangely enough. So much is legal. Prostitution is illegal, when in fact prostitution has been a major industry in this mining town for 120 years. So I've located a sort of mythical brothel in Doornfontein that I learnt about really, or I was kind of transposing it all the way from 1900, when characters like the Silver Fox in Van Onselen's book, The Fox and the Flies, Joseph Lee Silver, who was an international gangster criminal from Prussia, and who landed up here with his bringing his prostitutes from Spitalfields in London and trading them in the brothels of Johannesburg, which were plentiful in Frenchfontein and Doornfontein, in Commissioner Street and Market Street and Byte Street. And of course, Van Onselen gives this absolutely vivid account of, as he always does, of Joseph Silver. You know, that kind of level of underworld activity based on sex and drugs and rock and roll, let's say, has existed here for 120 years.
David, this is the second novel that you have published. Are we going to meet Jerome Nossel again? Is number 3 underway, if I can put it that way?
Yes, it is, Chris. You know, it's part of a triptych. It's actually in progress at the moment. And there's a character in this novel who's kidnapped, Alex, who I don't really go into. He's described by his wife, and he's described by Nossel and various other persons in the book. But this time, of course, Alex has got a chance to tell his story. So that'll round off the threesome.
I look forward to reading it. Congratulations again on The Good Nigerian. I've been talking to its author, David Dyson, lawyer, businessman, now, as I say, author. David, thanks for having been with us. The book, once again, is called The Good Nigerian. I enjoyed it thoroughly. It's published by Jacana at 240 Rand.
Thank you, Chris. Fascinating interview between Chris Givens and David Dyson. Viva! Comrade Golfa, viva. My boy, Detective Nossel, my boy. That's it from Mansfield today. And we'll catch you once again next Monday, courtesy of Capital Legacy, your #1 provider of wills and estate administration. Goodbye.